If you thought that the game against Galatasaray was an intense, interesting game to watch, what do you think about this one? Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Like the ending of that game was absolutely thrilling, and I personally believe that I think that we deserved to win. Again, I don't think that we were particularly incredible. I think that another if we played that way against another big team, we would definitely wouldn't have won that game. But at this point in time, just for the before the international break, with the results that we've been having and the performances that we've been having, I think that the 3 points is very, very, very important. Now, I think talking about the game, it was a game of two halves. I think the first half was quite boring, a lot of mistakes, a lot of problems, all seemed to be remedied, and a lot more improvement in the second half. I want to start by talking about the goal. Onana is going to get a lot of criticism, and I think that a lot of fans are now going to say that we should have bought a different goalkeeper. They're wrong. But the criticism of Onana is perfectly just. The problem was we should never ever have sold De Gea. Being a Man United goalkeeper is incredibly difficult. Incredibly difficult. You cannot just expect a goalkeeper from somewhere else to come into this team and play at the levels he used to play at. We signed Diogo Costa, David Raya, whoever we sign, and they would be having the exact same problems. I think mentality-wise, Onana seems to be a lot better than all these other goalkeepers, but he has to figure out a way to improve fast right now. I think the shoes he has to fill are big shoes, but we have no one to replace him. We have no other option. Yes, there's a young goalkeeper on the bench. Ten Hag probably doesn't think he's ready because otherwise he would be picking him in certain cup games, but he hasn't. Now on the goal was obviously a poor pass from Casemiro, a poor clearance from Lindelof. I think Lindelof did quite well to close down the shot, block the angle, and almost left a very small part of the goal open. I think that whole goal is just completely on Onana. Yes, those passes will happen in the midfield. We lose the ball so many times in the midfield. Some lead to goals, some don't. Yeah, it's just a coincidence whether they lead to goals or not. Against Galatasaray, when Amrabat lost the ball, we were out of position. So I think that cost us. But today, I don't think, it was. I mean, yes, it cost us the goal, but I wouldn't say that the poor pass from Casemiro was a big reason, was one of the biggest reasons as to why we conceded that goal. We should have made steps afterwards to prevent it. The clearance from Lindelof again, it's just difficult because he's just like sort of adjusting his feet while he's trying to clear the ball, so it's difficult for him to make any sort of massive clearance. And I think that goal, I'm going to say, is 90% on Onana. Any goalkeeper in the world should be saving that. I think the problem with Onana is that he tries to jump from his 2 feet and just stretch and go for the ball. What he should do is put weight onto his opposite foot and then use that weight to transfer him into that direction. So in this case, he should have put weight onto his left foot, gone slightly to the left, and then sprung onto his right foot to block the shot. I think his goalkeeping technique needs a lot of work. For a 27-year-old goalkeeper who's played at Inter Milan and Ajax, I expect a lot better. In the attacking side, there were flaws in the attack. I think we lacked quality from width. We oftentimes we tried using the wide areas to create chances. We didn't really create too much through the middle, or try to. But every chance that we tried to create from the right led to nothing. The ball and delivery from the right was poor, and there was no enthusiasm from the wings to get into the box and create something, especially in that first half. In the first half, we kind of saw structure similar to what was on the screen here. We had lots of overloads in the right hand side with Casemiro, Bruno Fernandes, and Diogo Dalot trying to link up and get balls into the box. And you would often see Amrabat or Casemiro making a darting movement into the box to win a header, like so. And we saw that a few times. But also we saw Casemiro on the right hand side putting in a few crosses to the back post for Rashford. And I think there was a chance for Rashford and maybe even Højlund. The problem with this was we lacked quality with the deliveries from the wide areas. None of the crosses that we made actually reached a player, actually got good contact with a player who was onside. And from the left hand side, we saw pretty good. I think Lindelof did well going forward, but his relationship with Rashford needs to improve. I think that they didn't really work well together. Rashford wasn't really using Lindelof, I would say. He wasn't really playing off Lindelof, wasn't playing. Sometimes I'd be looking at them saying, I was looking for at Rashford and hoping he would make a pass to Lindelof, but he chose to go himself. And I think that he clearly has lost a lot of confidence. I wanted to see him trying to get dribbles into the box, and in that first half, he never really did that. He never really tried to get an angle for a shot or a good cross in. He almost kept playing it safe and aimed to get passes, aimed to cut inside and get passes off that way. I think we dictated the game in terms of pushing Brentford back, but what we did in the final third needs improvement, and it has been the biggest issue of Man United for the last 3 years, 4 or 5 years. The money that we spent on signing a goalkeeper for £45 million could have been used to train the attackers in to understanding the positions and working on the training pitch and making 1-2 passes and a lot of neat little movements to get into the box and get into good areas. The only thing that I really saw in the first half was us booting the ball up the pitch, giving away possession early, and then trying to counter press. We have to learn how to be better on the ball. And when we did go behind, and even parts before we went behind, we did push Brentford back, but we looked clueless in how to create a chance. Absolutely clueless. I think what we mainly lacked in a game like that was players who were good off the ball, who could be technical off the ball, find gaps in the midfield, find gaps between the defenders, come in and move between the lines and play quick little 1-2s, and wingers who were enthusiastic and motivated to run at their defender, run at their player, and get in a shot or a cross. Now, whatever Erik Ten Hag said us in at half time clearly worked. I saw a much better performance in the second half. I think Eriksen has to have had a big role in that. But the way we dictated the game was a bit better. We didn't really look like we were vulnerable in the defence, in the defensive side. I think in the first half, Brentford were easily able to counter through our midfield, which is a bit surprising because we had two holding midfielders in the team. They were easily able to attack our back line and get into the final third. I never really saw that in the second half. I think Eriksen calmed the game down, really, really helped with getting us the 3 points. But the the way in which we played in the second half was much much better. Even Rashford in the second half, instead of being a bit safe and trying to come backwards and then looking for a pass somewhere across the pitch or to the defenders, instead he went toe to toe with his player and tried to make not just tried to, but successfully made a good few dribbles through the box and into the box. Being as players, the defenders were a bit sort of cautious. Oh, should we tackle him? Should we not tackle him? And he got through just a final pass, which is a bit off. And I was surprised to see Rashford taken off a bit early. I do sometimes like to see Garnacho play, and I do sometimes think Erik Ten Hag takes Rashford off too late or never takes him off when I want to see him off the pitch, and I think a new player should come in. But in this game, he was playing. He started to play a bit better. Although I think today, Erik Ten Hag was correct in the substitutions he made. I think he was right to bring in Anthony and right to bring in Garnacho. Even though Rashford was starting to play better, I think these two players really, really helped unlock the Brentford defence with fantastic dribbles and, more importantly, better final product. If we look at Anthony first, I think the relationship that he had with Dalot was a lot better. He seemed to attack the wing very, very well. Dalot. And when Anthony came inside and he made a good few runs, so which I haven't really seen from Anthony, usually into the box. He made a few runs into the box, especially when the ball was on the left hand side. I think that was different, and I liked it. I think getting into the box is always important when the ball is in this sort of position here. He was getting movements into the box and sitting next to Hoyland, allowing Diogo Dalot to push up the field. I think that's quite important. I think the relationship that Anthony has with Dalot is a lot better than Dalot that has with Bruno or Mount. I think on the left hand side, the main difference with Garnacho on the team is that he has better end product. I think that Rashford, at times, he will try and go down the blind alley and ends up losing the ball. And even today, even though he was making pretty good dribbles, he didn't necessarily produce anything out of them. Garnacho is a much different player. He is unlike Rashford. He has the ability to go both ways. So he can go. He's obviously a predominantly right-footed player, but he's definitely not afraid to use his left foot. Definitely not afraid to go down the left-hand side and put in a sort of pass into the box with his left foot. I think he is a lot less predictable than Rashford, and he always seems to produce something. Now, I don't think Garnacho is ready to be starting games yet, but certainly coming off the bench, we have to see him playing more games, especially as a substitute, and he has to be coming on at around the 60th minute, which I think he came on today, which is pretty nice to see. Enough time to get him influencing the game. I think one of the other substitutes was Anthony Martial. Martial is a very, very intelligent player. He's a player who likes to link up. He knows how to move between the lines, take the ball, pass it quickly. And as soon as he came on, he got the ball and made a little dribble around the outside players and came back and kept the ball. He's very, very good at those sort of things. I don't understand why in a game like against Brentford, players like Martial and Eriksen didn't start the game. Hey, I've been here for a long, long time, so there are no injury problems with them. I understand that Anthony is has just come back from a long break, and Garnacho is still a young person, but I don't. There's no issues with that. With Eriksen and Martial, I think they could have easily started this game. He did well when he came on. I don't think that obviously he did. People aren't going to really say, "Oh, he didn't really do much." But the thing with Anthony Martial is that he's not someone who's going to grab the headlines in the way he plays. He's someone who unlocks spaces for other players and unlocks areas that other players can run into. He makes very, very unselfish runs. And what he does is he will get players drawn to him. So if he receives the ball here in a space like that, he can easily draw all these players around him towards him, and he will very, very comfortably just shift that ball into space for another player. His back to goal work today was pretty good. Tried to win a couple of fouls, but didn't go his way. And I think the final substitution, don't need to say much about that. Now, I didn't watch this game live, so if I was watching it live, I probably would have questioned the reason as to why we were bringing McTominay on. However, I watched the second half after seeing the end result, so I was quite happy to see the substitution. But McTominay has done something that none of the other players on our team could do, and that was putting the ball in the back of the net. We saw this, I think, in a game last season against Everton. He was the only one of the. I think maybe someone else scored later on, but he was the only player who ended up getting the ball in the back of the net. We need players who can just score goals. I think players like Rashford, Bruno, Mount, yeah, they are exciting. Yeah, they are high-profile players, but are they clinical enough? Not just with their shooting, but like with their passing. When have you ever seen an incredible cross from them in the last few games? Or obviously Rashford got a good cross against Galatasaray, but when was the last time they scored? Got a cross that hit one of our players? I can't remember. I think it's now the time to see players like Martial, Garnacho, and Anthony getting more game time. And we have got an international break now, which means that Eric Ten Hag should have time to work with his team. But I would like to see some change, and I would like to see better performances that we've seen in the last few games. Overall, I think all the substitutes were absolutely spot on today. Usually, I've been a little bit critical of the timing of Ten Hag subs. I think they usually happen very late. He brought on Eriksen at halftime, didn't waste anything there. I think that was one of the first times he made a halftime substitution, which is good to see. He usually sends out the team for the second half and then waits another 15 minutes before making the first sub, and then waits another 15 minutes before making another two. I think that's too late. He made a first substitution at halftime, positively influenced the game. Two subs at 60 minutes, positively influenced the game. I think Garnacho got an assist. Anthony obviously was very energetic, helped the team in the final third. Almost got a pass off to Højlund on that counter attack. Martial helped with the link up, and McTominay scored two very good goals, important goals. And do I think McTominay is the future for Man United? Not really, but I think that now he's getting a little bit too much criticism. I've never been a huge fan of him, but he can do what very little of our players can do, and that is score goals. And we need someone who can score goals. Problem with McTominay is that he's very inconsistent. When you play him for long periods of time in the game, he may not be involved. But in these moments, in these sort of scenarios, when he can just come on and just get into good positions and get some good shots off, he saves us in these kinds of games. And we don't see enough performances of this from him. I think that's his biggest weakness. He has to work on his consistency for him to be a fantastic player. But again, very very important introduction in this game today. Now for the player ratings. I think Onana made two good saves towards the end of the game. Two saves that he had to make. I think again, if you mess those up, that's another big mistake. However, I don't think that redeems him from the earlier mistake. I have to give him a 4. He needs to find a way to improve. We don't really have any other options at goalkeeper. Yes, the kid is on the bench, but I don't think that kid clearly isn't ready because Erik ten Hag is not selecting him for any games. So Onana for me is a 4, and he has to improve. Dalot for me, he wasn't at fault for the first goal. He was very, very energetic. I love Dalot in the final third. I think Wan-Bissaka can look a bit awkward in the final third. Dalot looks very, very comfortable. He's a good defender. He's a passionate player. I even saw the way he said the last goal. He just fell on the floor. Was just yes, but he is a Man United player. He is someone that I think his performances are going under the radar. I think today I'm going to give him a 6.5. Maguire today didn't really do anything wrong. Got an assist. I think wasn't really too involved, but he did have some good contributions in the final third. A couple good crosses, a couple good long balls. I'll give him a 6 because I don't think he was at the level of Dalot, but obviously he did get an assist, which helped us. His aerial presence finally coming into importance. I think he needs to improve on. Obviously, he's not really a first team choice centre back. He's fourth or fifth choice. But when he does play, he really does need to improve in his aerial ability in the final third, because for the player of that kind of build, his main attribute is his height. He has to improve his heading. I think Evans, I'll probably give him a 6 as well. Actually, you know what? I'm going to give Dalot a 7. I think there's a few players here that probably do deserve 6.5, but weren't as good as Dalot, so I think I'll give Dalot a 7. You know what? I think Maguire and Evans both deserve a 6.5 because, as I said, if this was a Martinez or Varane performance, they'd both be getting good scores. They both played well. I can't fault them in anything. I think Evans, he's definitely not the future, but he's come in and he's doing a very good job in a backline that is very injury hit. Lindelof, I'm also going to give a 6.5. I think he played his overall game was pretty good. I probably would have given him a 7, but obviously that clearance is a factor in why we conceded the goal, so I have to knock him down a point for that. Casemiro, probably a 5. I think I would have given a 5.5 for his performance, but again, that pass did lead to the goal. I did say that he wasn't really to blame for that, However, you still cannot be making those kinds of passes. And again, I think he's someone who I'm starting to think should he be improving his performances. I tried to give him a bit of time. I still stand by him. I still think he's probably one of the best CDMs in the world. But it's now October, into our second international break. I expected him to be up to pace by now. His passing and on the ball stuff does still look a bit sloppy, and it did cost us a goal. It did lead to a goal today. Amrabat, on the other hand, I'm probably going to give him a 6. Uh, yeah, I think when Ericsson came on, Ericsson did look after the ball a bit more than Amrabat did, but Amrabat was still a very, very important player in that team. I think it was a much better performance than against Galatasaray. It was an above average performance, but because I've given other players quite low scores. I mean, you know what? Amrabat does deserve a 6.5. He was above average. I wouldn't give him a 7. I don't think he was amazing, but he wasn't. But he had an above average performance. Fernandez, I think I'm I'm a bit disappointed. I'm going to give him a 5.5. I think number one, he does lack consistency, but two, he also lacks that clinical edge that other players have in other teams. If you think about De Bruyne, someone who was compared to a few years ago, De Bruyne can accurately pass out someone like Haaland with a very pinpoint cross. Fernandes doesn't have that ability. Yes, he did assist Maguire on the last goal, which, I mean, not assist Maguire, but set up he was the one who punted that ball forward. But I still think he has to do more, especially in a game like that. We look to someone like Fernandes who can he's supposed to be our chance creator, but he cannot create chances because he doesn't have that accuracy on the ball and sometimes the knowledge to just work his way through teams. And maybe if he can see an incredible pass that he can play, he'll play it. But can he pull it off? And can he also play patient build-up football? I think there was a big question mark when Ten Hag first came. Could Fernandes play in an Eric Ten Hag system? But then obviously the Ronaldo saga happened. People kind of forgot about that debate. I don't think that I've seen enough from Fernandes to say, you know what, he is a fantastic player. Again, I still think he is someone that needs rotating in this team. You can play. I like to see Martial playing a bit more in that position because I think Martial can work a lot better in between the lines and link up the play better than Fernandes. I think someone like Ericsson can also play there if you want someone who can dictate the final third and create chances a bit more accurately and pick up passes more accurately. I think Fernandes at times just needs to be taken off the pitch and rested. It wasn't a fantastic game from him today, I have to be honest. Mason Mount, I'm going to give him a 5. Um, Actually, no, I'll give Casemiro a 5.5, so I'll give Mason Mount a 5.5 as well. Not very different to Fernandes. The only reason I gave Fernandes, I was thinking about giving Fernandes a higher score was because of that final ball up to Maguire, but anyone could have done that. Rashford's a difficult one. In the first half, he would probably get the same score as Fernandes and Mount. But second half, he did look lively. I'm going to give him a 6 because I don't think he was. I don't think he was as good as Amrabat or Maguire, Evans, and Lindelof. I think they all played better than him. But I did start to see an old, confident Rashford again in the second half for the time he was on the pitch, and I think he needs to build on that second half performance and try to get better from there. Højlund, I've given a 6.5. I think that having him in the team makes the team flow better because we have a focal point, a strong striker. We haven't had one since Ibrahimovic Lukaku. Yes, he didn't really contribute to any goals today, but his overall performance did make the team better and he did get a couple of shots off. I think my only thing about Højlund is he does seem to take a bit too long on the ball. I think that's just a young thing, a thing with age, maybe trying to do a little too much. Just that maybe just 1 second early, just pass the ball and he'll be a perfect number 9. Ericsson, I have to give him a 7. I think having him on the pitch really calmed the game down, influenced the game. The whole game changed in the second half. I guess Ten Hag has to share some of that credit. But Ericsson did come on and just, as soon as he came on the pitch, we saw against Galatasaray as well, just making incredible passes. Today, he just dictated that game so well. Garnacho, I'll give a 7 as well. Got an assist, was very, very lively. I think the wingers and Ericsson really changed the way we played in the second half. It really helped us break Brentford down. I think Anthony, I'll give a 6.5. Again, having someone like him come off the bench helped us in that game. Again, didn't really do as much as Garnacho because Garnacho got an assist, but he still played well. And I'll say the exact same with Martial. Both came on and both did a good job. Helped the team. McTominay, I have to give him an 8 because all he didn't really do much else in terms of performance wise, but he did the most important thing, which is get the ball in the back of the net. Without him, we wouldn't have won that game. So he has to be an 8.